Good day, everyone. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, presented by FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm Dan Bespris at Dan Bespris on Twitter. And today, we're going through picks 26 through 50 on the new board. Had a day or two off in between kind of rolling through these one by one, but it's time to dive back in. If you like the program, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe. That's how we continue to grow this thing. It's how we add more content. It is kind of the only thing at the end of the day that really, truly matters. But it's also helpful if you guys, do the follows on social and help spread the word and all that other good stuff. Let's just throw it up on the board. No reason to wait anymore. We got through 25 players on two previous kind of one-by-one episode type shows, finishing up with Jaylen Brown on our last one. So we'll start today with Jalen Brunson. We're in the Jalen area of this board, and Brunson is at 26. He has been in this general pocket for the last two iterations of the board. Started at a ridiculous 19 on the initial Yahoo rank sheet, dropped to 25. Now he falls one more slot to number 26. So Jalen Brunson is a complicated one. I don't really like him here, but I don't hate him, if that makes any sense. It doesn't make sense. That doesn't really make sense. So here's my issue with Jalen Brunson. From a 9-cat standpoint, his game just sort of translates weirdly. It's almost hard to quantify why exactly. It's really just that with Brunson, the guard stuff, you sort of accept to a certain degree that guards are going to not be good at rebounding and not be good at blocking shots. And that just sort of comes with the territory. I think one of the main problems with Jalen Brunson is he's legitimately so bad at those two categories that the fact that he's quite good at a lot of stuff. He scores 26 points a game last year. He was over 7 assists. He was actually a pretty good field goal shooting guard at almost 49%. Free throw could be better, just 82%. I'd like to see that at 84, 85, but it is what it is. And the turnovers are not terribly high either. We have an inclination to overlook the rebounds, the blocks. We're just like, yeah, he's a guard. He's not very good at those. But there are a lot of other guards that go around this same zone that are markedly better. And we just sort of don't even think about it. Like Steph Curry is at 4.4 rebounds per game. It doesn't even occur to us that actually makes a difference, that Brunson's at 2.9, or that Steph is at 0.4 blocks and Brunson is at 0.1. It just does, like with both of them, you sort of wave it off as, oh, those are low numbers. But there's a difference between being low and being very low. And it adds up for whatever reason. I mean, maths, that's why it adds up. Brunson's not a great 3-point guy. He's not jacking him up from downtown, which, whatever. Like, that probably isn't specifically why you drafted him, but he's only at 2.3 3-pointers. So then you kind of like squint a little and you realize that Jalen Brunson is very good at scoring and solid at assists, but nothing else for him is extraordinary. And at this range of a draft, you're kind of hunting for someone who can be a really big impact guy, and you kind of hope for it to be more than two categories, if at all possible. I should like Jalen Brunson. He's a high percentages guard. I love a guard that shoots a good field goal percent, but I also love a guard that gets some defensive stats. So, yeah, I mean, guard builds, he's fine for. If you're a punt blocks team, he's quite reasonable because, again, you're literally expending nuns of your draft capital on Jalen Brunson because he's not just bad at blocks. He just doesn't get them at all. Or maybe you're in a punt rebounds guard build where you've, leaned more into like a Jaren Jackson type of big man. Brunson makes sense because, yeah, he's a guard. He doesn't rebound, but he's extraordinarily bad at rebounding, even for a guard. He gets almost none, despite being on the floor forever. If you're just rolling straight 9-cat, I think we can do better. So that's what you want to think about. Brunson is a really good pair with someone like a JJJ if you're not worried too much about rebounds. If you can cover up his not a ton of threes with a big man who does hit some threes, that's where he makes a lot of sense. For 9-cat Roto, not great at 26. Evan Mobley at number 27 is totally fine. I have no issue with this pick at all. He was number 23 last year in 9-category leagues. Yes, he's a tiny bit lower than that in 8-category, but you kind of like split the difference a little bit. Last year in 8-cat, I think he was number 30, something like that. So around 27-ish if you split the difference, I guess. I don't know that he might play more minutes if the Cavaliers have closer ball games this year. I don't know that his production is going to change all that much. So I would assume that Mobley falls somewhere in between 20 and 35 in overall rank. So taking him in this range is totally fine. I don't think he's a massive value or anything, but I think he's a very safe pick here. Steph Curry at 28 is currently my favorite value on any board anywhere. This is nuts. And I get it. He's old. He might miss some ball games. He missed 12 last year, but he was number 8 by totals last season, despite missing 12 ball games. And if you happen to look at, the latter parts of the year when Steph was really crushing people, he was a beast. He was number 4 by totals over the season's final 2 months of basketball. He didn't miss a whole lot of time. I think his team had slightly fewer games than everyone else. His per game was right in that same general area, number 4. I for the life of me, I can't figure out why Steph Curry is being ranked in the 20s. There's absolutely no reason. Like, even in a bad scenario, you still have to keep him inside your top 16. So 28, I have no idea. I don't think we even need to talk that much about this one because it's the absolute no-brainer to end all no-brainers. It's why in expert leagues right now, his ADP is way higher than 28. It's not. It's I think it's like in the early mid-second round. Mid-second round. His ADP is 19.2. So obviously he's going way ahead of this in most drafts that are happening right now. But if the board doesn't change, as more public drafts start to happen, you might see his ADP start to slide a little bit. You know what I don't think we've talked about in a long time? The Golden State Warriors regular season win total is 45.5. That feels super low. But that's the number over at FanDuel right now. And I think maybe there is a FanDuel Vegas line setter's expectation that the Warriors are not going to stay supremely healthy this season. I don't want to totally write that off. The combo of Steph, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green was really playing well down the stretch last year. I actually think the Warriors kind of blow past this number, but maybe I'm overestimating how upright they're going to be. But anyway, that's again over at FanDuel Sports, 45.5. Dano leans to the over. Donovan Mitchell is number 29 on the board. I think he's a pretty good value at 29. I wouldn't call him one of my favorites on the board, but I like him there. I'll give him this sort of Dan Besbris very soft seal of approval in that it kind of felt like Donovan Mitchell was about as bad as he could have possibly been last year. While all the other Cavaliers were being sort of raised up, the rising tide kind of thing, the one player that didn't seem to impact was Donovan Mitchell, whose field goal percent was lower and free throw percent was lower and steals were lower. The minutes were lower, which we knew for all of those guys because the Cavs were blowing everyone out, so they didn't need to run their guys 33, 34 minutes a game. Everybody else had this nice efficiency uptick and not Donovan Mitchell. So my hope for this year is that we get Mitchell on the floor an extra 2 to 3 minutes per ball game, closer games. I hope we see the percentages tick back up. I think free throw may be more likely to tick up than field goal, if only because sort of the career stuff. I don't know that I would expect scoring to go up, but Darius Garland's going to miss a little bit of time at the beginning of the year, so that should help him some, and that would help assists a little bit. But again, every minute he's on the court is going to be good for defensive stats and rebounds in particular. So I like Donovan Mitchell to kind of creep back into the probably late second round kind of territory, 20 to 25, 20 to 30 range. And so if you're getting him at kind of the back end of that window, which you are here, I think it's a pretty good value. Let's zoom in more so you guys can really know who I'm talking about. Ja Morant at 30. Ja Morant is a build guy. And we've talked about this before, but it's worth going into just for a moment for those that may be joining us for the first time. Hey, welcome. Thanks for coming. Hit the like and subscribe button while you're here. Ja Morant in 8 cat last year was number 50. In 9 cat, there's basically no chance he gets to number 30. Basically none. He would have to change so many parts of his fantasy game. It's basically unheard of because his worst category was turnovers. And as I just told you, if you're playing 8 cat and you don't care about those, or, flip it, or you don't care about those, even in 9 cat, that still only got him to top 50. I think there's an expectation that he'll do more with Desmond Bane gone, and he might. But again, getting from 50 to 30 is going to require a pretty good size usage uptick. And again, you have to be dealing with 8 cat or punting turnovers. And you also need to get Ja Morant through the damn year healthy, which has not happened almost at all lately. He played 50 games last year. There was the suspension season. That was suspension and then an injury all rolled into one. He just hasn't made it healthy through a year almost ever. And we were talking about Jalen Brunson's shortcomings. Ja Morant has a lot of the same ones. He doesn't hit many three-pointers. He does get more steals than Brunson, but his field goal percent lower. But Ja Morant is not a great foul shooter either. So I don't know. I guess if you like that type of build, you could double down and go Brunson and Ja Morant and basically just, you're leaning into guards, point guard eligible players who don't hit a ton of threes. They're not bad in punt threes builds, which is weird because I know he's at 1.8 three-pointers last year. So to say, oh, punt threes, what does that really change? He was basically league neutral. But for a guard, he was quite low. I don't know, man. I'm not going Ja Morant in the third. He's one of the players that I would probably avoid here. He opened up at 40, which at least was like in your sights. But then to jump 10 slots earlier is, it's a lot. That's a lot. Now, if you're punting, or if you're an 8 cat or punting turnovers, and you also throw field goal percent out the window, that got him to 40 last year. So do those two things and add a little usage, and maybe he stays healthy, and that's how he gets to 30. All right. But what are we doing here, man? There are other guys you can take in this range where you don't need multiple things to get just to where they're ranked. Here's what I want you guys to think about. It's kind of a thought exercise. If you are punting things, you should be drafting guys at a spot that in your specific build, they beat their ADP. Not get to it, beat it. We're going to get to Zion in a couple of players here, and he's the perfect example of that. But let's keep going for now. Amen Thompson, as a pre-rank of 31, I would expect that to go up on the next board with no Freddie VanVleet around probably for the season. Totally fine with you guys taking Amen Thompson at 31. He's going to score more. He's going to assist more this coming year. I would expect the field goal percent, defensive stats, rebounds, all to stay somewhat static season over season. We can pray that maybe he gets a little bit better at shooting, but he's going to play 33, 34 minutes every night. He is most likely a top 40 fantasy player, honestly, with his eyes closed, but pretty close to with his eyes closed. And if there's any upside beyond that, that's how he gets up into the 20s in overall rank. I don't think I would go much higher than that. He's a super fun fantasy player to have, but he does have some pretty notable shortcomings in free throws, three-pointers, and probably points to a certain degree. However, and you guys know me, he's a little bit of a punt points type of guy. I know he's going to score more this year, but I still don't think it's going to be all that much. And for someone you're taking probably in the third, when a lot of the other teams around you are still taking guys who score a lot, Amen Thompson could be a pretty exciting third-round punt points guy. He'd also be a decent punt free throws guy in the third. But, I mean, in that case, you might be competing with some of these other punt free throw teams for him. It's going to be tough. I like Amen Thompson in the third. I just think you're going to be fighting a lot of teams for him. Chet Holmgren is the next name at the top of the board. I'm going to zoom in even further so you guys really know who we're talking about. It's going to be the name at the top of the board. That's who we're talking about on today's show. And by the way, if you're wondering, yeah, this board is hard to palate. A better board would be if you guys checked out my friends over at Fantrax. And the way you do that is by clicking the link in the show description. It's fantrax.com/oldmansquad. If you don't have an account there, sign up for one immediately. Why? Because it's free. You can play all the games at Fantrax for free. It's just like Yahoo, ESPN, whatever. It is a fantasy website hosting platform that has the best commissioner tools of any website in existence. You can set up better drafts with different rules. You can set up slow drafts, different round reversals. You can change how many players there are, IL slots, bench slots, all those different. There's 1,000. I mean, literally, you will become inundated. Your brain will explode as you're trying to figure out all the things you can do with the commissioner tools at Fantrax that you can't do at these other websites. And that's why you got to give it a shot. I will be always 100% upfront with you guys. The UI is not perfect. It takes a little getting used to, but once you're used to it, you will never go back. The only reason I still play leagues at Yahoo is because that's where they've all been, and I'm not going to move all of my people because there are a bunch of home leagues and stuff like that. But I'm running a slow mock right now with 13 other analysts, and you're going to see shows about it coming up in the next week or two. That's at Fantrax because that's where the sharps play. Check it out now, fantrax.com/oldmansquad. Chet Holmgren. I got to pick up my pace here if we're going to get through this thing in a decent number of hours. I like Chet Holmgren a lot at 32. 33? Oh, did his rank move again on me? Yeah, I had him shifted to 33, but it looks like he's gone back up a tick. Oh, because Pascal Siakam moved again. Oh, they did like a little... Was there another tiny shift here? There was a tiny shift here. They did a board readjustment 3 days ago, and they did like one little tweak. Who was the tweak? Siakam got moved back, and everybody else moved forward. But who else is in front of Franz? How did I get this messed up? Is it Zion? No. Was it Amen Thompson? Donovan Mitchell? It was Amen Thompson. He was the one who jumped up the board. All right, so that was the Freddie VanVleet adjustment. All right, I see you. Adjustment. Ha-ha. All right, then. Anyway, we were talking about Chet Holmgren. I think we're in the business here for a nice little bounce-back season for Chet. He was hurt a lot of last year, so his minutes were artificially lowered. That's why he was number 48 in per-game rankings. I expect both of his percentages to be better this coming year. I expect his minutes to be higher. I expect the rebounds to go up with the minutes. I think the scoring goes up with the minutes and the touches and the health. And this is kind of like your post-hype opportunity to get Chet Holmgren, especially, by the way, if you are, as I often do, punting points. He's not going to be a super high-scoring dude. I think it'll be better than this last year, but I think he's going to have a solid season. I don't know how much he's going to beat his rank by. I got to adjust my board. Can't forget to move Amen Thompson around. Let me highlight him on my own sheet so I remember to shift him to match the Yahoo board. But I like Chet at 32. I think he's a really nice third-round pick. Zion Williamson at 33 is very much like John Morant, a build guy. You are not taking Zion anywhere near this range unless you're punting free throws, because he and Giannis were the two worst impact foul shooters in the NBA. Nobody was really even in their vicinity. I think RJ Barrett might have been the third worst by volume. And so Zion jumps all the way up to number 19 if you didn't care about foul shooting. If you care about foul shooting, you probably shouldn't take him because he was number 102. Because the damage he was doing in one singular category was outweighing the good he was doing in quite a few. Because he scored a lot, rebounded okay, assist was pretty good for a power forward. Got some defensive stats last year, 2.1 combined. That's not bad. One of the preeminent positive field goal percent guys, 17 shots a game. He was hitting 57 of them. Turnovers were a bit on the high side, but you can probably kind of swallow that pill. So again, that's the Zion story. If you're punting free throws, drafting him here is fine. You're hoping skinny Zion can last through the season because he should be a second rounder in 9 or 8 cat in that type of build. And if you're not, you're not. Simple enough. Move on. You guys can yell at me all you want. Oh, I can still win free throws even with Zion. Yeah, you can. It's just the harder way to do it. Why not take a guy who's not going to completely ruin one of your categories? Like the next guy on our board, Pascal Siakam. Not that I'm a huge Pascal guy, but he's going to have a pretty good per game kind of season. You'll see a nice jump from 60 range, probably up to 40 range with a little more usage. You'll see more scoring, more threes, more assists. The field goal free throw stuff kind of cancels each other out, so that's not really a positive or a negative necessarily. He's not a particularly high turnovers guy. Makes a lot of sense to me as more of a fourth rounder, and his ADP suggests that that's actually where he's going right now. He's going a little bit after his draft slot of 30-something. So he slid down here as part of this last little tweak. This is messed up, guys. I went through and I transcribed the whole damn new board, and then they moved some guys around on me. So Siakam here is fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it. He's an in-between for me. Ivica Zubac is continuing to slide. He's down to number 35 now. And frankly, he's finally starting to get closer to where he belongs, which he opened at 29. Now with Brook Lopez behind him, that was too early. I would definitely take him in the fourth. I have no problem at all taking Zubac in the fourth round. I didn't want to take him early to mid-third when there are so many other options that are still out there who can kind of do more things. But by the fourth round, you're probably looking for a center if you don't have one yet. And Zoo is a solid one. I think his free throw shooting showed us that it was coming around down the stretch last year. That started to level off a little bit. Despite terrible free throw shooting first half of the year, he finished at number 30 in per game numbers. He also played 80 out of 82 games. His low turnovers are, part of the source of his success. And that's why he got passed over a lot. But fourth round, I think he makes a lot of sense. This is his rank kind of right near the end of the third. He's not a prime target for me this year. We got our value out of him last season, but solid enough. And then finishing off the third round is Franz Wagner at 36. This is, much like Zubac, a pretty fair spot. I don't have strong feelings on Franz here. He's not a guy I'm necessarily targeting, but he is a fairly well-rounded fantasy player. Finished at 38th last season. I expect his usage to go down this year, with Paolo healthier and Desmond Bane around and Suggs healthier. Don't be surprised if Franz is not taking 19.5 shots a game. I think he probably finishes in the 40s or 50s in per game rank. I don't hate him at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth, but he's not my favorite. I think he's going to be a small loss. Trey Murphy III starts off the fourth round. He's another guy where I'm not super excited or super mad about it. I think he actually has a pretty good shot to beat this number on a per game basis because Jordan Poole is bad and he takes CJ McCollum's spot, but probably, I'm guessing, comes off the bench, be a bench gunner, so that Trey Murphy can play with Zion and a center, presumably Yves Missy, and maybe you get some defensive guys in there like a Herb Jones plays a little bit more. Eventually, DeJounte Murray will be the starting point guard. So maybe Jordan Poole starts for the first couple of months. We'll see. Either way, I think Trey can get his 15-ish shots a game. He was up near 16 last year when he was right near the end of the second, beginning of the third round. So even if there's a little bit of slippage there, I don't think it's going to be all that much. So I think Trey's a pretty solid play at 37. I don't expect him to go flying above that mark. But again, you're on kind of a run here of players that seem, by my account, kind of totally fine. And that's the case for the next dude on the list as well, Desmond Bane at 38. Not a guy I'm targeting there. He was number 32 last year. And my guess is that he maybe takes a small hit in Orlando, but it might also end up being kind of the same. He was the third fiddle in Memphis. He'll be the third fiddle in Orlando. It's going to come down to just sort of how many shots there are even available altogether. But he's good. He's a high percentages guard. He does a lot of things well. I find it hard to see Desmond Bain slipping outside the top 50 just because his floor is high, because of the good percentages, because he can hit threes, because he can get some assists out of the shooting guard, small forward spot, because he gets steals. That gives him the high floor. Usage is the ceiling, but the tougher categories to get are the floor. So much like the guys before him, basically from Zubats, Franz, Trey, Bain, these guys are all just fine. If you can take him there, I see no problem with it at all. Kawhi Leonard at number 39. I love the fact that every time I blink, he's one slot lower on the board. This gives me great hope that we're going to be able to save our risky pick for the 4th round and get Kawhi. He's probably not going to make it to you if you have a pick near the middle or end of the 4th round, and especially not if you're playing in a roto league. Someone's going to take him before you because of the per game potential. But this is a 1st rounder with injury risk, guaranteed missed ball games, sitting in the 4th round. And we've played this totals game before. How many games does a top 7 guy need to play to be a 4th round value? And the answer is basically like, what did Luka Doncic do last year? He played in 50 out of 82. He was a 5th rounder by totals. So we're talking 50-something would get the job done for Kawhi Leonard this year. Tyrese Maxey played in 52 games this season, and he was number 58, and I think Leonard will be ahead of him. So we're talking probably to get to around 40 by totals, we're probably talking about Kawhi Leonard needing to play somewhere in the neighborhood of about 55 ball games. So if you think he can get through 2/3 of a season, then you're getting him at his floor. If you think he plays any games over 55, Kawhi goes blowing past this marker. 60 games, he's probably a 3rd rounder. 64 games, he's a 2nd rounder. 68 games, he's a 1st rounder. I mean, that's kind of where you're at. It's fuzzy mathing a little bit, but that's the truth. So I love Kawhi Leonard in this range. And the fact that he's now approaching 40 when he opened up at 34, quite pleased. Bam Adebayo still at number 40. Despite everybody around him moving around, Adebayo just sits right there at number 40. Nothing seems to change. Nothing seems to change. And I like him at 40 for his totals. Not for his per game, for his totals. Adebayo's probably not going to be inside the top 40 on a per game basis, although with no Tyler Hero for a couple of months, maybe he'll have no choice but to be. But I expect his field goal percent to be better this coming year. I think he'll be right around the 35 to 50 range in per game numbers, and I expect him to play 75 games or more. So I like Bam here. I think he's a totals win, and I'm going to have to separate some of these things when I ultimately do my boards at the end of the year. And I'll put little footnotes on, oh, this guy's here because of per game. This guy's here because of totals. Bam at 40 by totals is a solid pick. Guys, don't forget to check out our new partners at the HOF app or hofapp.com. Here's the thing. What is the HOF app? The HOF app, and you know what? Maybe what I can do here is I can try to share it on the screen for you guys to see. Yeah, this seems pretty easy. So there you go. You can see it on your screen. This is the HOF app. I'm going to have to zoom in, I'm realizing. So you can see all these different things. NFL, college football, baseball, WNBA, NBA. Those are not in session right now. But what you can do here is you can look up lines, you can look up stats, you can look up leaders, you can look up trends. This app or website, however you want to use it, can give you the edge against a number. It'll tell you based on thousands of different models being aggregated, tens of thousands at times, what is the most likely outcome for different players and different games. And it will help you make the right choices for your bets. The coolest thing they got going over there is the parlay optimizer. I'm not a parlay guy myself, but if you're out, and like everybody's doing them these days, I realize that that's what everybody loves to do. That's what everybody's talking about on the television. That's what people watch these days. People definitely still watch televisions. This is a tool that will tell you the weakest legs from a expected outcome standpoint in your parlay. And you can rearrange things so that maybe you pull out the thing that's going to blow it up for you. Or maybe you want to use it just to make, a straight wager. Whatever you want to do with it, it can do. And because you're seeing it on this show, you get a special deal. Sign up now using promo code SQUAD, SQUAD. Get a 7-day free trial. Try it out. Or wait until NBA opening night and then try it out. If you want to use it on the NBA, get that first week totally free with promo code SQUAD. And if you let it ride, you get half off your first month. That's all part of the same promo. That code is SQUAD. So get that 7-day free trial and 50% off your first month with code SQUAD. Just download the HOF app on iOS or Android, enter code SQUAD, and you are all set. More information you can find on that in the podcast description. Let's continue. Jamal Murray at number 41, I like a lot. People are very afraid of his health. I get it. He hasn't been healthy. Although, once he got his legs underneath him last year, Jamal Murray was relatively healthy and really, really good at fantasy basketball. He has a little bit of that Kawhi Leonard feel to him in that you kind of know you're going to lose a dozen games to something along the way, whether it's going to be back-to-backs or just, a series of knee and back injuries along the season. And where Kawhi has top 6 per game upside, I would argue Jamal Murray has more like top 20, top 18 per game upside. So between those two guys, I'd rather go Kawhi Leonard. Although I get it. Some people like the 6 assists you get out of Jamal Murray more than what you get out of Kawhi. But both guys are pretty damn good at across-the-board production. Both Jamal Murray and Kawhi Leonard are likely to miss some ball games. It's a really good reason to play it pretty safe in rounds 1, 2, and 3 because you have 2 excellent injury risk per game guys sitting for the taking here in the frontal parts of round 4. Larry Markkinen at 42, I will kindly pass. Utah they're clearly in one more year of a rebuild. Like, there's nothing more obvious on planet Earth. They got rid of John Collins. They got rid of Jordan Clarkson. They got rid of Colin Sexton. They dumped everybody on this team who could have been considered a veteran other than Larry Markkinen. It's Markkinen, and it's waves hands. Walker Kessler, who's like a 3rd, 4th year guy. I can't keep track anymore. Ace Bailey, the Rook. Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, Kyle Hendricks, Kyle Filipowski. This team's going to lose a ton of games, and they're not going to have to do a bunch of shenanigans to get there. But they're also really have no reason to push Larry Markkinen. This is the final year of the Utah Jazz teardown. Next season, I think, is going to be the time to take the plunge on Markkinen. Not this year. Pass him up. Let somebody else deal with the headache. And speaking of headaches, we got him back-to-back. Joel Embiid is a headache right behind Larry Markkinen. At least with Embiid, much like Kawhi, you've got top of the first round potential. But Embiid is likely to be hurt coming into this season. You could not pay me enough to put him on my fantasy team anywhere in these rounds where I can get legitimate star-level talent. And it's still out there in the 4th round that we haven't talked about yet. Joel Embiid was number 42 last year because his knees was so messed up. I've seen nothing to make me think his knee is better. So he's going to miss time. He's going to be slowed. He might miss more time. He might then miss even more time than that. No way. I'm not taking Joel Embiid before the 6th round. I know that's a ridiculous cutoff, but that's where I'm at with it. Josh Hart at number 44 is a guy I don't really want. I'm a little worried about Josh Hart. And here's the thing. I don't think that necessarily he's going to be a bust. I just don't have confidence the way that we have had before. Because he was great this last year. He's number 26 in 9-cat on a per-game basis. He averaged not that many points. 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, half a block, over a three-pointer. He shot 53% from the field. But he also played 38 minutes a ball game. And on a Tom Thibodeau team where no matter how much evidence was stuffed into a burlap sack and beaten over the head of Thibodeau. He wasn't changing his strategy at all. Teams had stopped guarding Josh Hart. We've talked about this on the pod a few times, to double up on Brunson, to double up on Cat. The Knicks just made no changes there. I don't think Mike Brown is going to be so completely married to that one 5-player lineup. And the guy who potentially gets burned in that is Josh Hart. Now, if you are, as Dan Besbris teams tend to do, punting points, Josh Hart was a first-rounder last year. There's almost no slippage he could get this year that would take him outside the top 50 in a punt points build. But straight 9-cat, if that's the way you're looking at it, to me, this is a little bit too early. So there's that build thing, and then there's that not build thing. I'm just a little worried about it. I mean, there's a very real chance that Josh Hart goes and plays 32, 33 minutes and is a top 50 guy again. Very possible. I just think that there's a deeper floor and a lower ceiling than there was last year. Derek White is number 45. You guys know I've loved him since the minute these boards opened, and nothing that I've seen has changed that. He opened at 45. He dropped to 46. He's back at 45 again. I think he's going to have a monster year. He was number 34 last year with usage that appears to be on the way up. I would expect him to finish this season ranked somewhere in the 20s on a per-game basis. I don't think the Celtics are going to shut everybody down right from the outset. They're also just going to be accidentally good enough to win almost half of their ball games, and that'll get you into the playoff picture in the WAC Eastern Conference. So I expect Derek White to play 70 games this year. I know, maybe stupid, but plus Jason Tatum is talking like he wants to rejoin the team for the playoffs or something like that. So if that's the thing, that if that's the company line for the Celtics, then they're going to try to make the bottom of the Eastern Conference playoffs and then see what happens. I don't think Tatum's going to play in them. I think this is a throw-of-the-way year. And I think the brass knows that for the Celtics, so they're not going to let Tatum come back. But he might keep telling the team he's coming back. And the players are not going to tank it. So I think Derek White's, I think he's going to be great here, and I would certainly take him earlier than this. We have 5 names to go on today's show, and I'd like to try to get them done in 5 minutes or less. Dyson Daniels at 46. We've talked a lot through the whole offseason on Daniels, and he's sort of creeping up the board, but this is where he belongs. This is where he belongs. Dyson Daniels was a second-rounder last year because he averaged a hyper-elite 3 steals a game. And obviously, if you're drafting him, you're not punting steals. But let's just, for our argument, say, what if you didn't really need his steals that much? Well, then he ranks outside the top 130. Because he really wasn't good in anything else, which isn't fair. He was a solid ball player all around, but from a fantasy standpoint, he was a negative against the average. He was sub-average in points, threes, free throw by a lot. His field goal percent was actually decent enough for a guard, but compared to the league, he was pretty close to neutral. Rebounds, slightly better than average for a guard, but again, pretty close to league average. Assists were meh for a guard. Slightly better than league average, but again, kind of meh for a guard. But then, of course, what he did was win steals by so much against anybody else in the league that he elevated himself to second round on one category. And that's why he's just like, he's a guy that was the greatest pick ever when we all took him at 125. But in the first few rounds, you really have to be build hunting. You have to be stockpiling defensive stats. I'm fine with taking him in the 4th round. I like other guys more because they do more things. Even if Daniels gets another 3 steals a year, 3 steals a game season, I don't think he warrants the price tag. Jaren Jackson Jr. does at 47. That's a solid pick. He was number 31 last year. Again, he's a guy who figures to see an uptick in stuff with no Desmond Bane around. And hell, maybe in a magical universe, maybe the blocks tick back up just a little bit. Doesn't have to be a lot. He was at 1.5 last year. What if it goes to 1.7? JJJ could be an early second rounder if the blocks get back up to 2. I don't think that's going to happen. But to me, he's all upside here. And he's always dealing with something turf toe this offseason. Unless I hear something bad about it, I'm going to assume that he's ready to start the year. Do your drafts later, and then you'll have a better idea. But I really like Jaren Jackson Jr. a lot at 47. Yeah, easy peasy. Kristaps Porzingis at 48. I mean, he's always a second rounder per game, but he's a bigger injury risk than frickin' Kawhi Leonard. I don't think I'm going Porzingis here. I mean, this would basically mean that you had a top 2 pick probably to start your draft, because I don't think he's going before the very end of the 4th round. So if you're rolling like Jokic, and I don't know who the hell you take at the end of the 2nd round, somebody good. Beginning of the 3rd round, somebody good. Do you really want to risk a Kristaps Porzingis injury stuff? I guess if you're in Roto and Kawhi's not there and Jamal Murray's not there, and you're still looking for that big per game injury prone upside guy, and you have a really safe first 3 picks, then all right, whatever. Like you got Jokic, you got Steph probably doesn't fall that far. Who's going at the end of the 2nd round that's relatively safe? Let's go Jokic, Donovan Mitchell, and Mobley? Yeah, you could take a shot on somebody, I guess. That's a big, heavy team, though. Whatever. I just don't. I don't think it's worth it. I think you can find something better. But again, if this is where you want to sort of spend some of your risk points, I'd rather try to talk you into Jimmy Butler, honestly. Cooper Flagg is going 49th. This is a guy that's going to have a pretty predictable season arc of being below that at the beginning of the year and probably near that to maybe even a little bit above it by the end of the season. But also, as the season goes, Kyrie Irving is going to show up at some point for the Mavericks. And so, to me, like, this is the you better figure it out quick Cooper Flagg. But he does so many things well. He can rebound, he can score, he can pass, he can get steals and blocks. His percentages are solid. Cooper Flagg is going to be an amazing fantasy player at some point. But I don't think any of us really knows how fast it's going to click. My guess is he's not top 50 for the first, I don't know, month or two. And then he probably is from that point on. But what happens when Kyrie comes back, I don't know. Usage might tick down where he sort of flexes back outside of that mark. I'm not going to take him here because I don't want to be waiting on somebody, but I totally understand why you would, because at some point he's going to be really, really fun and interesting. He's just not a Dan Vespers kind of guy. This is an old man squad thing. The only young player I've put on my list in years was Chet Holmgren 2 seasons ago when people were like, whatever, he's coming off the injury. And I was like, no, this dude he's going unicorn style where blocks and both percentages and all that stuff makes it really easy for him to beat his mark. But Flagg's can actually have to get his own shot. So I think you're going to see field goal percent slide. You're going to see turnovers. You're going to see a lot of that rookie stuff that has to kind of work the rust off. So I'd rather, I'm sad, honestly. I'm not surprised. I'm sad that he's going inside the top 50 because at some point he's very much going to be that guy. And honestly, by next season, he might be a 2nd rounder. But I'm not interested in waiting on someone to figure it out partway through this year. And instead, and I know we're technically outside the 4th round now, but we're going top 50 on today's show. If you have some injury clout left to spend, meaning you have very safe, generally healthy dudes for your first 3 or 4 picks, instead of Kristaps Porzingis at the end of this range, why not go Jimmy Butler? Down the stretch last year, Butler was better than Porzingis. He had a great run at the end of the season with the Warriors. The steals were very high. He got him back up into the high ones. He was healthy down the stretch. The free throws were that big positive again. He wasn't taking 3-pointers, which honestly, if you're drafting Butler, you're not expecting them. Jimmy Butler was a 2nd rounder down the stretch last year on averages of 19, 5.5, and 6 with 2 steals and, positives in all percentages and low turnovers. I don't know that he's going to be at 2 steals a game, but I think Jimmy Butler's a top 30 per game guy. And I think we're going to see a Jimmy Butler that's relatively motivated to play. I don't know if we're going to see more than, 68 to 71 ball games, but that I think is more than most are expecting. You can see Yahoo has him projected at just 55 games played this coming year, or is that last season? Let's double check ourselves before we put that out there. That was last year. The projection on Butler, let's zoom out a little bit. What do they think? We can sort this by projection instead. That was last season. Where's projections? Are they not out? There they are. Remaining games. Let's find Jimmy Butler before we wrap up today's show. Where are you, James? You know what we can do? We can search for the name, and then we'll go to projected. And they've got him. Oh, they don't have games played. They've got him set to score 1,032 points. We can probably game that out. If they think he's going to be around, what, about 18-ish points per game? What's 1,000 divided by 18? Yeah, about 56 games. So they got him kind of in that same range. I think Butler's going to play 65 games this year. I think he blows this 50 totals rank out of the water. Top 25. Yeah, go top 25 per game and top 30 totals. I think he's a great pick at 50, but only if you didn't spend any of your injury risk clout on, someone like a Kawhi or a Jamal Murray or something like that. You don't want to double down in these early mid rounds on guys that are going to miss a ton of time. Regardless of format, you can fall so far behind in games played that you can't make it up. Whoo! All right, guys, we've made it this far. I hope that this amount of work and analysis was enough to convince you to hit that subscribe button. YouTubers, please hit the like button on the way out. Find me on Twitter at Dan Bespris. We're doing a lot of stuff over there now that NBA Twitter is finally starting to pick up a little bit. This show is brought to you by Fantrax, FanDuel, the HOF app, and by the letter Q. I don't know. It just felt like we were in one of those zones. What's coming up on the show? Honestly, I don't know. I don't even know when these shows are airing. I pick a time and then they just go. But we've got so many things left to cover on the new Yahoo board. As soon as we get off air right now, I'm going to go adjust for the fact that they moved Amen Thompson up so that my board is, once again, accurate. We're not going to call it a new revision because it's really just one guy moving up a few spots. But take note, he is higher up now. I am where I was in this chair. And I'm who I was, Dan Bespris. And I thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon. So long.